It was a country in abject poverty, with its land ravaged by war, and did not have even the most meager resources. This country has no future. This country will not be restored even after 100 years. How can a rose blossom from a garbage dump? However, 60 years later, Korea has become a global power with the world's 12th largest economy.
Korea has gone through an amazingly rapid and successful technological transformation. And this is fabulous.
How did Korea, once the poorest country in the world, manage to escape the clutches of poverty and achieve such astounding success? In 1945, Korea gained independence from 36 years of Japan's occupational rule. But the Korean War broke out, even before they could enjoy the fruits of their newfound freedom. Countless North and South Korean soldiers lost their lives, along with another 36,000 troops from 21 foreign nations. Taking a toll of some 5 million casualties, the Korean War left the newly formed republic in a state of devastation.
Korea was very poor, all destroyed. We had to fight for the liberty and democracy of the Republic of Korea.
However, during the busy efforts of restoration, it was nothing but education which became the nation's highest priority. Although they were struggling from day to day, Korean parents did not ignore the education of their children. Grateful for the sacrifice of their parents, children would walk for miles in order to attend school. Despite the war's devastation, the government continued to invest in education. This dedication to and investment in education produced a highly trained workforce that would later on become the impetus for Korea's economic turnaround. Unable to recover from the ruins of war on its own, Korea was forced to rely on foreign aid. But when the foreign aid subsided after completion of the major restoration work, this caused Korea's economic growth to stall. This was a dire situation for a nation whose budget relied more than 90% on foreign aid. It was at this time that the military regime came to power. Having succeeded in a military intervention, its leadership made economic development their top priority, if only to quell widespread public turmoil. In order to spur economic growth, the military regime founded the Economic Planning Board, giving it unprecedented powers for planning, allocating the budget, and for attracting foreign capital. The Economic Planning Board developed a 5-year plan, which was to be the new blueprint for economic development. In 1962, the first 5-year plan was put into action. The problem was the acquisition of funds. Unfortunately, the United States reacted with indifference. Berger, the United States ambassador to Korea at the time, also made a negative report on this plant to Washington, D.C. But Korea did not give up. After endless efforts, they were able to receive an inflow of capital from West Germany. The miners and nurses that were dispatched to West Germany sent their earnings home, and the government was able to obtain loans by pledging these funds as collateral. This was helpful, but far from enough. Due to an inability to attract sufficient funds, the Korean economy took a nosedive. Fortunately, the light industry sectors like textiles, wigs, and needlework developed rapidly and created momentum for the Korean economy's growth. While guiding the economy with policies such as rationalization of the exchange rate and interest rates in 1964 and 1965, the government also responded to the market's demands and fostered free enterprise. However, since the light industries relied on low-cost wages, their competitiveness weakened. The government began to invest in new industries, such as steel, coal, chemicals, machinery, and shipbuilding, to create a powerful engine for economic growth. Steel was the first heavy industry to be developed. Despite skepticism and concern about the feasibility of such a venture, the government launched a massive effort to build an integrated steel mill in 1970. The United States and the world looked upon this project with doubts, as the steel industry requires massive investment and cutting-edge technology. And a more advanced nation than Korea at that time had attempted this task, but failed. In spite of such skepticism, the Pohang Steel Mill began to produce steel in 1973. Although it entered the steel industry about 60 years later than advanced nations, Korea would soon become the world's fourth largest producer of steel. The success of this primary industry paved the way for the advancement of other steel-related industries, such as shipbuilding, automobiles, fine machinery, construction, and electronics. The New Community Movement is considered as one of the crucial forces in promoting the growth of the Korean industry. When the New Community Movement began in the 1970s, the Korean government was virtually bankrupt. But the support that they did manage to provide was used effectively by Koreans in improving their living standards. 33,267 villages in Korea received free cement. For the next 2 years, only villages that showed promise were given additional cement and steel. The government decided to support the communities that had the will to stand on their own. The people also cast off their self-doubt and gained confidence that anything was possible, which nurtured hope for a bright future. Once a movement to increase the revenue of farms, the New Community Movement made its way into all sectors of society, increasing social awareness in the cities, factories, and the workplaces. This showed that poverty could not be overcome through foreign aid alone, and that the true path to success lies in deeply rooted solutions that can change the core of society. This grassroots effort, coupled with a global economic boom, helped to fuel an amazing economic growth in Korea. But a crisis emerged from an unexpected source. In October 1973, the Yom Kippur War broke out. With the price of raw materials skyrocketing, the domestic factories ground to a halt while inflation soared. This was a critical blow to Korea, since it was a country without a drop of oil, which had just begun to industrialize. But this crisis proved to be an opportunity. The Korean government used the construction boom in the Middle East, which resulted from the skyrocketing oil prices, dispatching workers to the region and constructing $10 billion worth of buildings a year, and used the oil crisis to stimulate economic growth. Around this time, another oil shock occurred. After learning valuable lessons from the first crisis, Korea overcame the second oil shock without much difficulty. During the two oil shocks, most other countries decreased their investment, but not Korea. For the first oil shock, Korea invested heavily in its steel, oil, chemicals, machinery, and shipbuilding industries, while in response to the second oil shock, Korea boldly restructured its economy. Their strategy was right on target. The phenomena of the three lows, the US dollar, oil prices, and interest rates, helped the Korean economy to flourish in the 1980s. Meanwhile, with the struggle for democracy in June 1987, each class of society started to voice their demands. This sparked the efforts to realize democratization, which was lagging behind the nation's economic development. Korea's export-based economy became even more competitive, and the nation's per capita GNP rose sharply. These achievements came after only 33 years of Korea's economic development efforts. Thanks to this success, Korea became a member of the WTO and a member of the OECD in 1996. But these successes had blinded the nation to the lurking dangers of the global economy. Quite simply, it could be said that Korea had popped the champagne cork too soon. The Asian financial crisis, which started in Thailand, spread through East Asia like a wildfire. 6 out of 10 major corporations were in danger of bankruptcy. Even the chaebols of Korea were on the verge of collapse. On November 21, 1997, Korea applied for relief assistance from the IMF.
To the globalized environment and return the Korean.
Corporate downsizing became the order of the day, while the people of Korea, who once dreamed of joining the world's advanced countries, were burdened to share the pain. Then again, the financial crisis presented an opportunity for economic reforms. Insolvent financial institutions were shut down or merged, while corporate businesses underwent extensive restructuring. Along with this restructuring, management systems were also changed to include principles based on competition and performance. Repayment to the IMF, which began in 1998, was completed in August 2001 with a final installment of $350 million. It was a truly moving achievement in which Korea managed to pay off the loan 3 years ahead of the deadline. During the time Korea had escaped from dire poverty and become a world power with global corporations, the country had to reinvent itself a number of times, while the people had to make countless sacrifices. As a country that was once one of the poorest nations in the world, Korea has built an economic success story from the ruins of war. Korean parents continued to send their children to school even as they starved. And the Korean government invested boldly in industries such as steel, shipbuilding, automobiles, petrochemicals, and semiconductors to achieve extraordinary economic growth. Successfully overcoming the financial crisis that swept through Asia, Korea has acquired a world-class manufacturing industry. In 2009, Korea joined the OECD's Development Assistance Committee. Korea has become the world's only nation among the various countries that gained independence after World War II to evolve from an aid recipient to an aid donor. The strategy and know-how of Korea's economic development from absolute poverty is now being benchmarked by many countries from all over the world. And in 2010, Korea will become the first nation in Asia to host the G20 summit meeting, which is being held in Seoul. Indeed, Korea is taking on new challenges for the world's future as a responsible member of the international community.